Today on CityCast Chicago, National Guard troops have been temporarily blocked from the city. Lawmakers are headed back to Springfield, hopefully to deal with our regional transit problems. And Chatham welcomes a new wine and cheese bar to the neighborhood. It's Friday, October 10th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. We've got executive producer Simone Alicea in the building. Simone, listeners have gotten to hear from you a lot over the last few weeks. I'm glad to have you here.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
We've also got a fantastic reporter from the Tribe, our friend Corley J, in the building. Corley, welcome back.
What up? Thanks for having me, Jacoby.
Y'all, let's jump right into the stories this week. It feels like the entire city has been waiting with bated breath as on Monday, lawmakers led by Kwame Raoul filed a challenge against the Trump administration, hoping that a federal judge would rule that this current deployment of Texas and Illinois and even some California National Guard troops to the state and the city could be paused. And Simone, we finally got some clarity late Thursday.
Yeah, so U.S. District Judge April Perry heard arguments from the state of Illinois and Chicago, as well as the federal government, the Justice Department, and issued a temporary restraining order, basically temporarily blocking National Guard troops from deploying in the state. She initially said she did this in an oral ruling from the bench, so she just kind of explained what the ruling was. And she initially said that she was granting the motion in part. It was a little unclear as I was kind of following kind of what the partiality of it all means. We know it's a temporary restraining order, but there is going to be a written ruling issued later today. Perry, who was appointed by Biden, she basically, what was the quote? It was something like, there is no evidence to suggest that there is a rebellion in Illinois, which was the federal government's argument for why they needed to deploy the National Guard, right? That the protests in Broadview and elsewhere around Chicagoland essentially amounted to rebellion.
Yeah, she said multiple times in more ways than one that the Department of Homeland Security really has a detriment of credibility in this case as well as in others. She talked about the way they are framing what's going on in Chicago, like their broad narratives of what's happening in D.C., Portland, and elsewhere. This idea that there is some rebellion happening in the court systems amongst protesters, that like this is not supported by the data, by our lived experience, by testimony from lawmakers, organizers on the ground, even law enforcement in these various cities. And like you said, that most of the chaos is being fomented by ICE agents, that they are at the helm.
Well, and I think it's interesting because we saw that in the questioning of the Justice Department lawyer, Eric Hamilton, right, where Perry showed frustration by all accounts that Hamilton couldn't really answer her questions, like specific questions that we've been asking about where are they going to be deployed, how many, what exactly are they going to be doing?
Are they here to, as folks have suggested, solve crime? What does that look like?
Yeah, Perry really kind of pointing out, like I said, a lot of stuff that we on this show have been kind of talking about. So it's kind of wild to see it happen from a judge on the bench. Attorney General Kwame Raoul came out and has, kind of claimed a victory here. I will say this is just one step in the saga of National Guard deployment. As we have seen in Portland, there will likely be some kind of an appeal. Who's to say what an appeals court panel might say? And of course, this is also just, in the grand scheme of things, a temporary injunction. We don't have any kind of, permanent blocking from National Guard troops. And of course, this doesn't block the presence of immigration agents, Border Patrol, DHS, ICE, et cetera. And so it's a small thing, but it is something.
I mean, the Trump administration, beyond carrying out these unconstitutional raids in which their umbrella has taken in, hundreds of people of varying legal status, it's been very clear that their goal was to provoke, Democratic-led cities with black mayors, to incite protests with the hope that they could then justify more troops, a larger violent presence of military figures, ultimately to get Trump to this place where, you know, he is setting the groundwork for a more formalized authoritarian takeover, and really exercising the National Guard and ICE as his own personal sort of military force. It's, again, the rhetoric he's using to sort of demonize Chicago and Portland that goes against all of the video evidence, goes against all of what we're seeing on the ground. Is clearly a part of a larger agenda that they've had in mind this entire time.
And with the support of governors like Texas Governor Greg Abbott, right, who was more than willing and thoroughly excited to lend his troops, or rather send his troops to Portland and to Chicago, right? Even though he was also the one who was busing thousands of migrants to Chicago in the first place. You know, on the flip side of this, you know, I think, as I said, this is alarming and we've been watching this. On the flip side, I think there are some bright spots. There was a large protest downtown on Wednesday. The reports I saw, hundreds of people. It kind of looked like at least close to 1,000. It was a lot of people marching through downtown on Wednesday, protesting the presence of National Guard and ICE in Chicago. There were also additional actions in Broadview, of course, but also in Elwood, where troops are staying. So we're seeing the suburbs really activate and get involved here. Also, some good news out of the courts. A judge ruled that many of the ICE arrests starting from early this year are illegal, that ICE has violated a consent decree around, and we've been talking about this, warrantless arrests. They're really not supposed to be arresting people without warrants. They essentially got like a couple dozen people who were included in this original lawsuit, and now lawyers are estimating that as a result of this decision, hundreds more could potentially be freed. But it requires quite a lot of work to track down those cases. So, you know, it's a sort of mixed thing there.
I was going to say, even as those bright spots are taking place, the Trump administration is very clearly setting the precedent to attack protesters by sort of naming, you know, anti-fascist ideology and essentially anyone who stands in opposition to these policies as insurrectionists. Like, he's already started using the language that federal judges who rule against him.
who led an actual and fomented an actual insurrection at the Capitol in 2021. Yeah.
Continuing the hatred for protests we've seen across his term. He's already started to lay the groundwork to call these judges who are ruling against him as trying to foment a legal insurrection. Corley, how are you feeling, my friend? I mean, you and your colleagues over at the Tribe have essentially been on ICE watch, sort of documenting where they've been spotted in the city. You know, how are you feeling trying to keep track of all of these sort of various stories taking place at once?
Exhausted. It's a lot going on. And I believe you said earlier, like, no end in sight right now, especially with the National Guard troops possibly being deployed. The story that I got out was about this conversation that has been taking place that kind of reopened wounds within the Black community and Hispanic communities, you know, when Greg Abbott bused a large population of migrants to Chicago. You know, there was a lot of conversation about Black people kind of feeling left out and overlooked with this population getting things that they felt like they deserved. And this conversation was brought back up because that South Shore building, which was raided, that had migrants placed there, but also Black citizens were detained as well. So I went over there and I talked to a couple people, one man who was actually detained, a 67-year-old military veteran who said he suffered from PTSD. And I asked him if he thought that he would be impacted by the presence of federal and ICE agents being in Chicago. He said no. I asked him why, and he said, because I'm a Black man. Some Black people had this attitude that they were kind of happy that the ICE agents were in Chicago because they didn't want the migrants here. And they were like, you know, it's time to get these people out, these illegals out. One man that had that type of attitude said that his stance kind of changed after he witnessed the ICE raid at South Shore. He was leaving his friend's house and he described the scene as like a movie. He said it was dark, but when they had came to the building, it was so much light, it looked like it was daytime. And he said that his stance had changed because he saw how ICE had no mercy for anybody, women and children, seeing them in zip ties. Some people didn't have any clothes on. He was just like, it was something that you would never want to see, basically. And some activists also talked about how it's a lot of propaganda that's going on to kind of cause this divisiveness that has worked, putting to oppress people against each other. But also looking at history and how the federal government, federal law enforcement has never been kind to Black people. You have COINTELPRO and you have the CPD working with the FBI to kill activists like Fred Hampton. So these conversations have kind of been resurfaced because of these incidents. You have where federal agents choked a Black guy in East Garfield Park, and then you have the raid on that homeless shelter in Bronzeville, which is historically Black. And it's really interesting to see that these conversations kind of just keep on cycling and just getting back to the root of the problem of being like disinvestment and poor policies, which a lot of activists, especially in South Shore, have pointed out. The specific property at 7500 South Shore Drive, I got a statement from the Department of Buildings, and they talked about how they had tried to do inspections and the owner didn't even show up.
So this was the one that was raided.
Yeah, the 7500 on South Shore Drive, yeah. The property owner didn't even show up for the inspections. And according to documents from the Department of Buildings, the building hadn't even passed an annual inspection since 2022. So you have these people that's living in these conditions. And on top of that, the migrant crisis with the state kind of finding housing in affordable places, which happen to be Black places. So it's a lot of intersections that's going on here.
And I appreciate the historical context you provide, because in this moment, it is so easy for people to honestly to offload what's happening here to another country, right? Or a time period. Like you constantly hear people saying, oh, this is like Nazi Germany. And then I'm always like, no, this is like the United States of America. Like what you're seeing right now are slave catcher tactics.
Right, asking for papers. That's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing sort of the mass incarceration, the same type of language that we just saw 30 years ago with like super predators.
Corley mentions COINTELPRO, right? That I've been thinking about that so much, right? Which is the systematic surveillance, infiltration, and then eventual assassination of Black radicals and Black activists and leaders, right? In the 60s, most notably Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers in Chicago. And like so much of the playbook, when you talk about labeling Antifa as a as a quote unquote terrorist organization, like that's the playbook. It's exactly the same.
Corley, another video we saw last week was, Alderperson Fuentes out in Humboldt Park at the hospital, sort of doing her due diligence to like stand up for her community members, to, try to request information from ICE. And, that really took an aggressive turn. Can you talk about what's happened in the time since then?
Yeah, for sure. So that video, very, very heartbreaking. I saw it and I just really couldn't believe what I was seeing. So since then, there has been a letter that's gone out to support Fuentes and to talk about how what the ICE agents did to her was an abuse of power. But also we learned that 13 city council members did not sign the letter in support of Fuentes. And we got 7th Ward Alderman Gregory Mitchell, 9th Ward
Alderperson Anthony Beal,
13th Ward Alderman Marty Quinn,
15th Ward Alderperson Ray Lopez,
16th Ward Alderwoman Stephanie Coleman,
19th Ward Alder Matt O'Shea,
23rd Ward Alder Savannah Tabarez,
24th Ward Alder Monique Scott,
38th Ward Alder Nicholas Posado,
41st Ward Alder Anthony Napolitano,
42nd Ward Alder Brendan Riley,
45th Ward Alder Jim Gardner,
and 50th Ward Alder Deborah Silverstein.
Corley, who I know the tribe reached out to all of these folks. Who has responded?
I think that the only person that responded late yesterday was Alderman Stephanie Coleman's office to say that she was out of town.
And I think Silverstein as well had responded.
She was observing Jewish holidays.
Jewish high holidays,
Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest had not responded to the tribe's questioning. This was I saw this story yesterday and thought it was, I thought it was really interesting because this is not any kind of official resolution. This is not something that is like an official vote among the council. This is just a strongly worded letter.
This is just showing up and supporting your colleague, going, what we all saw on video was not okay. And some of them, have outwardly pushed for Chicago to reconsider, if not wholesale, remove its sanctuary city policies.
Yeah, and Alderman Greg Mitchell's 7th Ward, that is where that 7500 South Shore Drive property is that experienced that raid.
Well, and I believe neighbors there have been concerned because he hasn't really come out and made a statement about that either, has he?
No, he haven't.
Yeah, Jacoby, to your point, I think you allude to this push, I believe earlier this year or maybe late last year, as it became clear the Trump administration would be coming into office, and it became clear that Chicago would be a target for some kind of mass immigration enforcement. There was this push to amend our welcoming city ordinance, essentially allowing Chicago police more leeway to work with immigration enforcement on enforcement actions. Currently, our welcoming city ordinance does not allow this, nor does the State Trust Act. And the alders who were pushing for this, their argument was they basically thought it would take the heat off Chicago. They thought that if they appeared to be coordinating with federal authorities, that maybe the feds wouldn't try so hard, that they wouldn't push so hard, that it would not lead to as much conflict. That ended up not passing by a huge margin. The vast majority of alders voted against that push, but that was kind of what was going on there. And then, of course, you quoted in the Tribe Story, Alderman Ray Lopez, in a previous interview where he told it was a radio show or a podcast where he told the host, that he was willing to give Mayor Brandon Johnson's address to immigration enforcement and essentially making comments that, he should be jailed for his rhetoric, much like what we saw Trump say this week.
We will continue to follow these updates. Please check our show notes where you can subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, and we will drop links to Corley's reporting with the Tribe. You looking for a new adventure this fall? Consider rock climbing at First Ascent Climbing and Fitness. We got a buy one, get one day pass for CityCast Chicago listeners, so you can bring a friend or, go and use both for yourself. Even if you ain't never tried climbing, it's actually a little bit easier to get up there than you might think. Across its 4 Chicago locations, First Ascent offers a very supportive environment to help you get started. Plus, the climbs are color-coded, so anybody at any ability level can find a route to seeing. That's a little climbing lingo if you ain't know. It means get to the top of that damn thing. They also got yoga classes and fitness equipment all included with your day pass or membership. Again, CityCast listeners can buy a 1-day pass and get another one of them things for free. Learn more and get your BOGO passes at faclimbing.com/CityCastShot. That's faclimbing.com/CityCastCHI. Shy. Same page? Cool. Fall is in full swing, which means fall theater season is back and cracking across the city, and I got another pick for you to look out for. Don't wait to secure your tickets to Timeline Theater Company's world premiere of Hundreds and Hundreds of Stars. Motherhood, marijuana, and the multiverse collide in this story set in Chicago, exploring family, immigration, and identity. The play follows Clara, who's applying for U.S. citizenship ahead of a trip to Paris with her tween daughter, but Clara's application is unexpectedly flagged, threatening the only home she's ever known. We got a quote from the playwright and star Sandra Delgado, who says, "This is a very personal family tale, not unlike those playing out more and more every single day in Chicago and around the country." Now playing in a limited run through November 9th, this Timeline production is being hosted in the immaculate Looking Glass Theater space in the historic Water Tower Waterworks at Pearson in Michigan. Visit timelinetheater.com for more info and to get your tickets today. Simone, while all of this is going on, state lawmakers are preparing to come back together next week for their veto session. And there is one huge concern on their agenda and that is the forthcoming transit fiscal cliff. We got some updates this week, but we are obviously not out of the weeds.
Yeah, it's this is a story that felt like the biggest story about, a month ago or so. And
40% service cuts to regional transit
yeah,
on the table.
Yeah. So, folks may remember the last time we talked about this on the show, we were talking about a $770 million shortfall across regional transit agencies. So that includes CTA, Metra, and PACE. The RTA, the Regional Transportation Authority, has now revised that outlook. And now the deficit is only $202 million, which is a lot less.
Should I ask where the $500 million disappeared to, or should we just keep it pushing?
Well, so here's what they're saying. They put together a presentation on this, and there are a few things going on. Some of this is like shifting accounting.
Chicago love a budget trick, boy.
Well, and we talked about too how the RTA gave like 70 plus million to the CTA, so that saved off some stuff. So there's some like money moving around. That's part of it. There's also, cost cutting and efficiencies. It's a little unclear the extent of those, or sort of like how widespread that is. But the biggest thing that the RTA is pointing to is that they got more revenue this year than they expected. Mm-hmm. They got more sales tax revenue, specifically because Illinois passed a change to basically collect more sales tax from online sales. A lot of that went to transit, so they collected more money. And so they've revised this deficit, and they're saying that instead of cuts, we were sort of expecting, like, if lawmakers in Springfield do nothing by the end of the year, we had been expecting, as you alluded to, up to 40% service cuts on CTA, basically starting in 2026, as soon as the new year started. Now, if lawmakers do nothing, we have until mid-2026. We got until the middle of the year, guys. And it's unclear if those service cuts would stay at that same level too. Mm-hmm. Perhaps they would kind of edge in a little slower. And so next week, starting on October 14th, is when the veto session starts. This is the short sort of fall legislative session. Again, I've said this before. I do think lawmakers are inclined to pass something. I really do. The Senate passed a bill in the spring that included for funding that included a really controversial per package delivery fee. The House didn't consider that. I think the funding question is still a big one. There is a lot of agreement on changing the governance of regional transit. I mean, people are even using like this revision of the deficit to be like, how come we're only hearing about this now? How is this like...
Yeah, Cam Buckner came out and was just like, the fact that $500 million that we have been talking about for a very long time, is sort of all of a sudden pushed down the road. And now they're forecasting a $770+ million deficit for 2027, a nearly $900 million deficit for 2028. He was very much like, are we preparing ourselves to kick this bucket down the road yet again? By now, sort of positioning this smaller deficit is like, oh, this doesn't require systemic change, like was being pushed in the spring.
And RTA is still pushing for that. RTA is still pushing for like, we absolutely need more funding. This is still a crisis. But I think really a lot of this is like to buy time, because also you have to remember that RTA's budget season, they have to approve a budget by the end of December. And so they will either approve a budget that includes some kind of fix from lawmakers or that does not. And they've presented scenarios for what that will look like. And I think they're preparing for a scenario where there is no fix and by the end of the year. And that's kind of the situation that they're preparing for too. But yeah, I think transit advocates are like, well, does this not, reduce the urgency then of providing a solution if you're revising? And it kind of gives the folks who are really gung-ho about shifting the governance of regional transit even more ammunition to say that that's needed. And so, yeah, I'm really hopeful. Lawmakers have a lot of budget stuff they will have to consider in January, especially with the decline in federal funding in so many areas, most notably Medicaid. I think it's the biggest one, healthcare, right? Our whole government is shut down over this right now. I don't think they want to have transit on top of that when they come back for the full session in January.
hopefully this latest news is ultimately to assuage our concerns, to be like, oh, we're dealing with this, we're working on this, but we're going to get this out the way, and not a way for them to just buy more time until the crisis is sort of essentially back on our front step as we've been told it was this entire year. I don't know. I kind of feel gaslit that we've spent 8 months saying the ceiling is like the sky is crashing down, and then they get here and they're like, actually, we found more money in the cushion.
In my time as a reporter, I've covered a great number of fiscal cliffs. Usually there is just a lot of deadline pushing and then a solution that's almost a solution that's not quite a solution, but it pushes the deadline so far that we don't call it a cliff anymore. Usually that's how it works in my experience.
You think you set up for a Thelma and Louise situation just to find out that you actually in a Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner situation? That's
a pretty accurate metaphor. That's a really that's an apt metaphor.
I appreciate that. That was off the dome, and you immediately approved it. Come on now. Corley, let's get our good news started early. Your second story is about a new spot that opened up in Chatham recently, Park Manor 75. Put me on. Tell me more about this.
Yeah, Park Manor 75. And you said wine and cheese bar, and I'm going to say that because the other word is kind of hard to say, and I don't want to stumble over it.
Charcuterie. That charcuterie board.
Charcuterie.
Yes, I always thought over charcuterie board.
Yeah,
there you go. Roll off the tongue.
But this is a really cute story. This married couple, married over 20 years, is bringing something unique to the 75th Street corridor in Chatham. And so they're bringing this wine and charcuterie board bar. And so it had a soft opening this week. They had like a celebration with neighbors on Thursday. And they'll have an official soft opening on October 14th. I reached out to them on Instagram because I was like so interested in this. Like, oh, wow. And they also have like videos on their Instagram page talking about the role leading up to opening. So they announced plans for the business in 2022, but got delayed through city permits and cost changes and all that. And they finally broke ground in 2023. And I think this is so cute because the couple said they used to have dates on 75th Street, like visiting a lot of local businesses. So to open up on 75th Street is a very full circle moment for them. They also took classes in Napa Valley, got certified to do the wine thing, spent time in Venice and Paris to study the experience that they wanted to bring back to Chicago for the residents of Chicago and people in the neighborhood. And I think that it's just like, it's so cool to see, that the community building over there. I wrote about a barbecue joint that joined over there as well. That's not too far from Lim. So
you're saying wine and barbecue, like in the same
exactly,
and
like
walking distance.
Exactly. I think that is really cool for the neighborhood. And they said something that's really dope. Like people that are from Chatham, like live on the South Side, often have to go up north for this type of experience, and then people up north aren't able to come south for this type of experience. So they're kind of doing that to kind of marry the two. And I'm super excited about this. It will feature wines and liquors fermented and distilled by Black-owned businesses as well, and I believe a rotating menu.
Yeah, and they also got a Wine of the Month club people can sign up for. Simone, I want to test your Chicago-ness here real quick. Very random.
Boy.
I want you to go to Park Manor's website.
Okay, hold on. Give me a second.
Parkmanor75.com.
This is not going to end well.
No, I think it's a very loaded question. Go to the Our Story segment and scroll down to the pictures.
Okay.
And tell me, what's the most Chicago thing about them pictures?
Is it the wood paneling?
Yes. Yes. Gee, the minute I was going on the website, I went through the pictures and I saw that wood paneling. I just got transported back to my grandmama's basement in various neighborhoods because every single one had it, whether it was Chatham, South Chicago, Beverly. A wood panel like Chicago interior is, it's a throwback.
Yes, the hairstyles too, I would say.
Everybody look like they got their Adriana furs on up in there. No, this is an absolute beautiful story. Bro, it really is simple. It's like people in the neighborhood, this is the type of stuff that they want in their neighborhood. Just some variety, some creativity. And, shout out to the Chicago Neighborhood Grant that helped make this possible for this couple. What a fantastic story. We're going to drop a link in the show notes so you can learn more about Park Manor 75. If we said it once, we said it 1,000 times. It's spooky season, y'all, but what doesn't have to be so damn scary are your old drafty windows. Not if you replace them with Window Nation. Window Nation offers top quality replacement windows with a lifetime warranty. And if you act now, you can make no payments for 2 years. No, for real, no payments, no monthly payment, no down payment, and no interest until 2027. And if you're looking for high quality, affordable windows for your home, then Window Nation is the place to be. Get started on your free estimate before October 31st to save big on your replacement windows. Get in before Halloween. Head to windownation.com. All right, we already started the good news early, so let's keep going. But I gotta sing it. Some good news. Simone, what's your good news for us today?
I am still riding high from our members event last weekend, I think. So we went birding with the Field Museum, which, holy Moses, what a treat to have Field Museum bird experts at our disposal to talk about the various birds of Chicago, migratory and non-migratory birds. We went with our CityCast Chicago neighbors, of course, who were also just a delight and so excited. It was really fun, Jacoby. Like our guide, because we had to split up into two groups, but our guide had like a scope. And so like you could, sometimes you'd see a bird from really far away, or like I had my kind of like thrift store binoculars that I could see a little bit, but like he'd set up the scope and it looked like it was like a close up. It was like HD bird watch. It was so cool.
I didn't get to use the scope. I had like the monocular.
Oh, the monocular. We got to see like the color of the bird's eye. You know what I mean?
Ooh.
Like it was so cool.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw all kinds, and we were like identifying, this is a little gross, but we saw a kestrel up on a lamp, like near the pavilion, the Huntington Pavilion at Northerly Island. And the kestrel had just caught some kind of rodent that it was feasting on, and we were able to identify what it was eating by looking through the scope, which again, a little gross, but very cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, one of the folks in our group, I think it was Pat, had a really nice telephoto zoom lens. And so a couple of times when we were pointing our cameras in the same direction, I would go over and be like, okay, what'd you see? How'd you get it? And the pictures were gorgeous. The lens was heavy as hell, but this might have been the birding outing that made me go, all right, it's finally time to upgrade to that next. Because seeing it through other people's gear, that's the worst thing for me. No, it was a really good time out there, but we do have another neighbor event coming up in October. So if you want to pull up on us at the Ramova Theater, we'll give you the exact date and time. I know there's some people who are like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just camp out at the Ramova. That seems wholly
That's cool
inconvenient.
too. We'll still be there.
You could do that though. But
that's fine.
If you want the exact date and time, then visit membership.citycast.fm and support your favorite local podcast. Corley, what about you? What is your good news for listeners today?
You know my good news. Bears back from bye, baby.
I'm not even gonna hold you. Last week was different. Like it was a very good week of football, but I had no emotional connection. I felt lost.
Oh yeah, exactly. Well, I got a different feeling because I'm in like so many fantasy leagues. I'm in 4 fantasy leagues, so I'm always watching.
That's too many, Corley.
No,
that's too many.
I am too, and I lost last week. No, I'm not in 4, only 2, but I did lose last week. But there was no one on the Bears that could have helped me, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But it was very, very sad to not, have our team playing. But being 2-2, I'm feeling really confident right now. Very confident. And I was kind of like let down, but I understand like with so much going on in Chicago, y'all didn't get to talk about the Raiders game and the way that we blocked that field goal and it was a thriller of a game. I was so waiting. I was like, wait, but we not gonna mention this game? What's going on?
No, you're right. Our last game against the Raiders, I've seen so many different clips of people like Bears fans taking that in. And I was on FaceTime with the homie Darius, and I was sitting here on my couch watching it, like prepared for the disappointment, because good things don't happen to us. Lucky plays don't go our way since Devin Hester stopped running them back down there. And so,
and now the way that they lost is how we would have lost. So
it's
the fact
how
that we
lost to the Packers last year at home, a game I was at, a blocked field goal.
Oh my God.
So the fact that we've seen so many blocked field goals this year across the league and the Bears got to benefit from one was really good. I feel like we really needed this bye, not only because we're going from Vegas all the way to DC, but Corley, we have alluded to this game the last couple of times you and I have talked, the Bears versus the Commanders. Last year, this was the game that I think universally broke
everybody's
Bears fans.
Spirit.
Broke Bears fans last year. The Hail Mary that Jaden Daniels threw to win the game. And it was the worst kind of Hail Mary. It didn't even look like people put effort into it. It just kind of fell into Buddy hand. Like, and you saw clips of like players who gave up early or who were celebrating. Like,
notably, Tyrique Stevenson. And I'm not going to lie, he has earned his keep. The way that he's been knocking the ball out and getting, our fumbles, getting us back with the pick sixes and everything. Shout out to Tyrique Stevenson. This game is so important. We cannot lose.
No,
I'm putting a lot on it, but we can't. This game is too important.
This is our opportunity. This is redemption. This is a post-bye win. This is above 500. A few weeks into the season for the first time in some years. I think this game means so much to us at the end of the day. And if we win it, we going to be insufferable for the next few days. And my predictions for our long-term season record, that they could shift drastically in one direction or the next after this game. And so
thank you for that, because you be on me with my predictions, but it fluctuates depending on how we doing. So come on.
Right, I can't hold you to the prediction you made in the preseason. That's not fair.
Thanks.
All right, y'all. Bears versus Commanders, Monday Night Football. If you check the link in our show notes, you're going to see how some of the Sun-Times writers, what their prediction for the game is. And let's see if you agree or disagree. I'm going to end us out with one of my favorite Chicago festivals that is back this weekend, taking over Navy Pier, and that's the Slow and Low Lowrider Festival. It's moved from a neighborhood festival for something that takes up Navy Pier, and given its huge connection to Chicago's Hispanic and Latino community, I know that organizing this, continuing to run events, continuing to, encourage people to come outside and enjoy themselves has been very difficult. And so, so for all of the organizers who have pushed to continue to make this festival happen, for all of the organizations that are going to be out there, whether it's serving food, whether it's participating in cultural dance, I just want to send a lot of love to the entire team behind the Slow and Low. I'm going to drop a link in our show notes where you can find your tickets. Seriously, some of the most beautiful whips you have ever seen in your life. Some of the coolest bikes, motorcycle, or just straight up bicycles you have ever seen. And so pull up on them, y'all. I want to give a huge thank you to my friends for joining me today. CityCast Chicago executive producer Simone. We've been doing this 4.5 years, and I'm so grateful that we can keep doing this. Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Jacoby.
And Corley J from the Tribe. G, you've been rocking with us for the beginning. I didn't watch you continue to grow as one of Chicago's best journalists. Thank you for sharing your time with us as always.
Oh, thank you so much, Jacoby. Always happy to be here.
Before we close the door on yet another episode, I have to give another huge round of thank yous to our brand new neighbors. Shout out to Louise G, Phineas C, Isabel M, Denise E, Jordan M, Andrea T, Caleb E, David A, Jennifer J, Jeff L, Neha A, Roxanne H, Christine G, Laura Q, Hannah KS, Ross H, and Andy M. Seriously, y'all, the fact that I get to name off so many people today over the last few days, we really can't communicate how giddy we are. Not only did we get to cross off our goal of how many new neighbors we were trying to get signed up during our campaign, but y'all wrote such overwhelmingly beautiful things back to this team. And you can only imagine how tired we are right now, how overwhelmed we are. And so your support really lifts us up. Your words really, really drive us forward and kind of keep us going during these last few months of the year. So thank you. Keep listening. Keep sharing us with your friends and family. And hey, you can sign up to become a new neighbor at any point in time. Whether you want the ad-free listening, whether you want the access to neighbors-only events, or if you just want to show some love to your people, go over to membership.citycast.fm and sign up now. Now, I know there are some of you who like, Kobe, I've been a neighbor for weeks, months, years. Kobe, I've been a neighbor all week. I've heard this. Like, give me something else to do, right? I've already shown up in all these ways. Is there any other way I could show love to the podcast? You know what? That's a damn good question. And there is. You can nominate us for the best podcast as a part of the Chicago Readers Best of 2025. And you can nominate the newsletter, Hey Chicago, for best email newsletter. Over here at the podcast, we trying to win an unprecedented 5th year in a row. Jesus Christ. 5. Count that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. That's how we trying to roll, y'all. The 3-peat, cool. Back to back, nice. 4 in a row, spectacular. 5 in a row? 5 in a row? That's something I haven't even done, as top speaker in the country. I won 4 in a row. Never could get to 5. Right? Even the Bulls had to get some water for a little bit and give Hakeem Olajuwon a couple years. We ain't trying to give people no break. We trying to keep the pressure on them. And so let's run this thing up. I will drop a link in our show notes. Now, of course, we can't finish out without thanking the people who make this podcast and newsletter possible. That includes executive producer El Capitan Simone Alicea, our producer Michelle Navarro, our Hey Chicago newsletter editor Emmy Mack, our roving newsletter editor this week McKenna Harford, and our roving producer Zoe Colkin. Our social media manager is Rick Homuth. The music we all love is from my boy Sam Thousand, All the Kimonos, and Mark Greenberg from the Mayfair Workshop. Additional music this week from Taryn Ector and DJ Dan's The Rooster, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. Hey, I've already given a whole lot of thank yous, but I want to give one last one to you. The people who are listening to this podcast, who make time for us week in and week out, it means the world to us. We're going to take a little breaky break for Indigenous Peoples Day on Monday, but we're going to be back bright and early and energized in your inbox Tuesday morning. I'll talk to you then. Peace.